Good day, everyone. Another crisp but clear day here, although it looks like the clouds are coming in. So let's head on down and take a walk to the docks today. So we come down our pathway, you can see the gulls are out for their breakfast. Algernon the seagull is happily king of the flat rock. And though it's quite clear the direction we're going to be walking, look this way. Can you see that line of heavy clouds? See how that front is pushing it in? You can just see them rolling. So if you look off into the distance there, you can see how dark and foreboding those clouds are. Are they snow clouds? Haven't a clue. And I wouldn't mind a bit of snow just about now. I'm not carrying my gimbal. I actually have my tripod, so I will apologize now if it seems a bit shakier. But this way, I can set you down sometimes as we walk and talk. And it also gives me a chance to beachcomb, which I can't do as well with my gimbal in my hand. And if I don't find something good, then I always think it's worth taking a stone and tossing it to the sea. Alright, let's continue on. Now we are passing our railroad tracks, which for those of you who are newer here, these railroad tracks, which were put in, I think around 1950 by the old grandfather who used to live here, and run up to that building, which is our boathouse, which is the place I'd like to work on. The boats, which were two large boats, would be brought in at the end of each season and stored in the boathouse. Now, we no longer have our sailboat, and this isn't working, but because this is grandfathered in and we have the rights to have these old steel train tracks in there, I always have this fantasy, and believe me, it's very much a fantasy because the cost would be horrible. But though we don't have a sailboat, and I'm not sure that we would ever have a large sailboat again, I always imagine the lower part of the boathouse used to hold two boats. But if we were to able to frame off one section where the train tracks run, and let that be just enough space to hold a beautiful old 1950s wooden Chris-Craft powerboat, and then the rest could be turned into a house, which is what I would like to have it turned into. That's just a little fantasy I have, but let me reiterate, it would probably take 10 lifetimes to ever be able to get to that. But let's look back. So we've just come from here. There's the other side of our railroad tracks. And you can see the ominous clouds, but the hopeful sun. Boy, what a metaphor for our current world. But you see that hopeful sun up there, shining above the darkness? That's us. We can be the hopeful sun, shining above the darkness. All right, so let's just continue on to the dark. Now, I've taken you on this walk on a very high tide where we've had to walk up through the neighbor's field here, past the salt hay border. I've also taken you when it's even been a lower tide than this. So I'd call this a lower to middling tide, I think. Of course, if we look down here, we can see animal prints. This, most likely, well, they could be coyote, although they look a little bit small for coyote. That's a small, well, they could be coyote, but I think the other one might be fox tracks. And sadly, I lost a chicken to a fox the other day. And it was simply because I closed the chickens in right around 5 when it gets dark. I waited till about 5:30 by accident, and in that half an hour, the fox snuck in and was able to nab the poor little thing. But we soldier on. Another lesson for today. But can you see the light? See how we have the dark from this cloud here is covering, see the bank of deciduous trees in their barren midwinter state, but see how dark they are here in the shadow? And then if you look this way, look how they're lit up with bright color. Now if we were sketching that, obviously we'd put darker through there and maybe take more of a grayer next tone up to show the trees there, although as the sun comes in. Then over there we'd take ochres and yellows and whites to show that tree line, and we'd be demonstrating the stark contrast of light and dark, which I love, contrasts of light and dark. One of my favorite things to sketch. I'm hoping this isn't too boring, just another walk. I'd actually had intentions of going out tomorrow to an antique shop again, but just because I see so many news stories of different cases and things, and though we are allowed to still go to such places, I think I'm just going to give it one more week, so I hope everyone is okay with that. So today we are just going to have a walk. Every time I take all of you on a walk, a small plane comes over. That is a small plane. Oh, but look at the quality of the sun now, and the gold ochre of the crumpled seagrass and salte, and then the bluey green of the water. It's lovely. Well, let's continue on. Wow, look, the sun is really winning out over that, which makes sense, obviously, because the sun is rising. Well, technically the sun isn't rising, but relative to us, the sun is rising. Can you see that little, because the quickness of the tide, do you see those three? I'm not sure, they might be plovers, just riding the current out. But look at that stark light, and there's the rays of the sun, that dark cloud just pushing forwards, that cold front is just pushing it. And then the clear sky, and onwards we walk. Oh, that's a good, see that tree, that driftwood tree? Hope it's showing up because I can't see in the viewfinder, but that's a great, that would be a wonderful whelk tree. So I might drag that back and add it to the tree where we hang our whelk shells, which has been pretty barren this year since there's been no one here but me to hang shells on it, and I haven't had very many. Now you can see how the tide moved out. Do you see the line of wetness from the dry sand and then that row of freshly made salte, which will eventually work its way up after a few tides up to there and dry nicely. And that stuff is wonderful for putting around your flower beds and things. I've had people ask, does it hurt about the salt in it? But I don't know, if maybe just my plants have already adapted to the salt water and the air. And it's such a minuscule amount, and it gets watered so quickly. We have such sandy soil that water drains down to the water table so quickly that it's also why we need to water a bit more. I'm hoping this isn't too shaky. You can really see the neighbor's boathouse. Now, of course, because of where they're located, their boathouse, as in most boathouses are directly on the water. So getting their boats in and out is much easier than our setup with the long railroad track. But it's what the family owned at the time. And the grandfather, though he was a bit of a terror and a sort of a negative aspect of the memory of this place, he was smart enough to put that in at the time. So let's continue on towards the dock. I think right about now the quiet and calm of things is really important. And the sound of the shells crunching. And of course, I love the sound of walking on the dock. So let's continue onwards. And there go the ducks. Always the comical sound they add to the song of this place. Now look at the color there. It's funny, I don't know, I haven't shared much sketching of the scenery around here. I do sketch it all the time. I think because I do it so often I don't think about it. Now you can see how you would probably start with an underpainting of a yellowy orange to get the glow. And then I'd put in that strip of blue and go back over it later with a darker blue to add the darker tones you see. And then that strip of yellows and greens in the back, and then quick little pencil lines of, I've actually put a big line of dark greenish and grays in the background for the trees in the rear, and then for the foreground deciduous trees, little markings upwards of white chalk or white pencil. That's the benefit of using a program where you can just click and change your tools. So we've made it to the dock, so let's head on out there. I love the little sound the gulls make, their little happy noise. They're probably hopeful I'll throw a sandwich to them or something, but not today, little fellas. Isn't the sound of the wood? I love that sound. And good morning to you, Gull. This is such a great spot to sit and dream and look at the sun. There. Now you're sitting down here on the dock with me. I hope you can hear that cry of the gulls. Oh, I think that was an eider winging its way across the scene. I love the sounds the male eiders make. It's usually around spring, around their breeding season. And eiders look like ducks in their evening clothes, with their little tuxedos on. And they make the funniest sound. Hopefully I can share that with you at some point. Let's look this way. He's making a commotion. Here we can look down, move our wellies around, and yes, I'm bundled up. Besides my skirt, I'm wearing a pair of trousers. I'm sure I look a whale from behind. I have so many layers of clothes on, but normally nobody sees me. So now there is Treasure Island, which is the little spit of land owned by our neighbors. But now in the summer I swim I think someone asked once, is it good to swim here? I love swimming in our little harbor because I can start on our part of the beach, which is rocky and has lots of grass, which is perfect for snorkeling because you can just glide across the glass and you feel like you're flying and all the little fish will follow you around. And then you can swim and sometimes walk across the harbor depending on how low the tide is. And because the water can stay lower in our harbor depending on the tide, it heats up quite warm. Sometimes it's like bath water. And so then you swim across to over here where it's very sandy. And then beyond over where the bit of rocks are, that's another little sandy area that you can just lounge about in soft sand. And then just walking the other side of their break wall is more in the open sea, so you get big waves to crash and play in. So pretty lucky that within one little swim I can have a rocky coast to snorkel, a sandy bit to collect stones, a smooth sandy bit to just luxuriate in soft sand, and then big waves to splash and play in. And the mermaid in me, even now, even though that water is freezing, I just want to dive in and swim around. And this part, this is dredged here. This is the channel that comes in from out there so that when you bring your boats into this part of the harbor. And I think I mentioned once before, the family once owned another house down there with a dock, which made getting on the boat easier. But sadly, that was sold off a while ago. Actually, before we came to Bunny Hall because, well, anyway, we just needed funds to help try to maintain what we have. But in order for boats to get in and out of here, especially the fishermen, even with their smaller boats daily, they need to have this dredge to get in and out because on the low tide, without it being dredged even just a few feet, they would never be able to get in and out. They would be stuck for hours at end. But that makes for a fun current and also an amazing deep little ravine that's always full of fun fish to discover. So you can swim here. That's a long answer to a question of can you swim in your harbor? Well, I hope you're enjoying this quiet, calm walk. I think right now we really need walks like this and quiet moments to just think and reflect. Here, let's look back. This is another great sketch. See, you've got the light coming in. Now you've got that large post from the dock in the front, and then its twin in the back. So that to the side there would be that's a great composition. And then see the long shadow, and then the starkness of that sky with the sun up there and the ripple of the waves to the right. That would be a lovely sketch. So I need to share some more sketching. I had a lovely idea of with my little tablet I use sometimes as a sketchbook, I could make our fire in the garden or down on the beach and take you along with me, and we can sketch and look at the view. And I have been splitting the view and the sketch just because many people seem to like that. I know a few say they prefer just the sketch. So I think to probably just please more, I'll try to do a mixture of those two things. So sometimes I'll have it full screen and sometimes I will mix the two of them. So I hope you enjoyed today's walk. We'll see what else I get up to for today's video. if I haven't time and I don't have time to sketch for this video, or record the sketch, then this may just be a walking video. So, looking back in the harbor with the weights for the oyster cages, the floating dock of the working fishermen, the fisherman's boat, Treasure Island, and back along the beach, past the boathouse, back to Bunny Hole. And another wintry New England day to make a fire indoors, a pot of tea, and do some sketching. Now let's head home, make a fire, and get some sketching done. One last rock toss. All right, let's head home. You will recall I shared this sketch with you previously, a sketch inspired by LaLande, of course, and I wanted to make a sort of almost a ghostly figure, or possibly just a figure in the past. This person happens to be in the Victorian time period, in the 1880s, which is the style dress that I love to draw and paint, looking down upon the courtyard in LaLande. And then now you'll see, over the past 2 weeks, I've been turning it into a digital oil and pastel, which is what you see now. And of course I had to add animals, or an animal. And when I considered the animal to add, I thought, what better animal to add for an inspiration from LaLande than a peacock? So rather this is Thor, or simply a ghost of a Thor of the past looking down upon the current happy inhabitants of LaLande. I just thought it was a good animal to include, and I hope you like the use of color and how much it differs from when I do an outlined ink sketch with watercolor to a finished oil pastel piece. Now my hopes and plan for this is I want to make one image of this in this particular colorway, exactly as you see it, printed either on canvas or nice heavy stock paper, and I'm going to make that a one-piece original, and I'm going to hand sign it and make it a 1 of 1, and I'm shipping that off to LaLande as gift to LaLande, again in thankfulness to them for how much they've given to all of us, and how much, so much of us, we chat chums, have enjoyed our time being able to just have the escapism. So, and actually this one you see here with the pink border, it'll be a little bit different than that. I'm sending something that would be very much an original piece to LaLande. And then I'm also going to ask them to not share it on Cateau. I just want it to be special for them. Now, obviously, you, my followers, already know about me, so I'm happily sharing it with you, and you can see how it looks. And then this will go to LaLande. And then if any of you make it to LaLande in the, wherever it ends up, if it goes in the gallery, or I don't know, hopefully it would be used, you would be able to see it then. And then to make this piece available for sale, which I do hope to do, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the colors of the curtains and maybe change your dress colors, maybe give it a border and make that into a print and available on things. But that way I feel like that's a special, the one special original piece gets shipped off to LaLande, and then the other pieces that I will sell as prints and things will have just a little bit different, so it's not exactly the same. I'll change the colors and maybe change things up a bit. So let me know if you think that's a good idea, and also if any of you are even interested in this type of an image. Let me know if this is something you'd love to have as a print, or would you wear this on a t-shirt, or would you like to have it on a mug, or would it be cute on a teapot, things like that. So let me know what you think. And I hope you enjoyed today's very long walk. I just feel like we really need walks and escapes now. But until I feel more comfortable going out to do outings, I just feel walks and artwork is what we need to focus on. And of course, artwork is my main goal for this month of January. I hope you enjoyed today's walk. And thank you so much for watching my vlog. And I hope that my little quiet life here can help to be an escape for some of you during these particularly trying times. And thanks for sharing your morning with me, or whatever time of the day it happens to be. And I shall see you in the chats and in the comments. And until then, remember to stay creative.